because God is looking at people coming to His Son, and He knows that sin is going to happen when He creates the world, and He contemplates whether He should do it or not, and He decides to do it knowing it's going to happen. We call that plan. Doesn't matter how you conceive of the immediate causality. All that matters is, you know, if you do this, this will happen, and you'll need to do that, and you want to do that, and therefore you do this, and that comes, and it's all in the plan. And so my first answer to where this world comes from is that it comes from God's intentionality to have a history of redemption from sin. And in preparation for that, He ordains and permits and plans that there be a fall of Adam into sin. Let me give you another verse. Revelation 13:8. All who dwell on the earth will worship the beast. Everyone whose name has not been written before the foundation of the world in the book of life of the Lamb that was slain. You get that picture? The beast. And it says everybody's going to bow to the beast, except for one group. The people whose names are in the book. What book? The book of life. The book of life of the Lamb. The book of life of the Lamb who was slain. The book of life who was slain, of the Lamb who was slain before the foundation of the world. The slaughter of the Son of God is in the mind of God before creation. Therefore, creation He knew would involve sin for which the Lamb must be slaughtered. And if He knew that sin was coming and He created the world anyway, it's a plan. This is God's design. This is the universe He means to create. Otherwise, He wouldn't have created it. It's not logic. That's Revelation 13:8 and 2 Timothy 1:9. Therefore, Adam's sin is part of God's plan so that now, in this world of sin, God might display justice, mercy, grace, patience, wrath, compassion, none of which would be possible without the fall. You can't have mercy. You can't have compassion. You can't have grace. You can't have patience where you don't have guilt, sin. Therefore, God's passion for His glory is to display the entirety of His whole being and all of His attributes, including the capstone attribute of the glory of His grace. And therefore, He plans a history of redemption, and He puts everything in place for it. That's the first answer in the series. Here's the second one. The reason this terrorized and troubled world exists is because God then subjected the natural world to futility. That's a quote from Romans 8. I'll come back to it. That is, God put the natural world under a curse so that the physical horrors, now listen carefully to this, so that the physical horrors we see around us in diseases and calamities would become a vivid picture of how horrible moral evil is. In other words, natural evil is a signpost pointing to the horrors of moral evil against God. And before I say another word on this point, let me say something quick and clear. Some of the most godly, loving, kind, Christ-like, heaven-bound people carry some of the weightiest signs of disability, disease. Signs. Signs which say, this, though I am Christ's, this is a physical witness to what that moral evil is. Listen to Romans 8:18. You'll hear where I'm getting this. The sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing to the glory that is to be revealed to us. For the creation waits with eager longing for the revealing of the sons of God. For the creation was subjected to futility. That's what we see all over the world. The creation was subjected to futility, not willingly, but because of Him who subjected it. Who's that? That's God, because it says He subjected it in hope that the creation itself would be set free from its bondage to decay and obtain the freedom of the glory of the children of God. So God subjected, when Adam sinned, a curse from God comes upon the natural order. Futility, bondage, decay, misery, death. God disordered the natural world. God disordered the natural world in order to bear witness to the horror of moral evil. Have you ever wondered why, since Adam's sin was a moral choice against the living God, why God would strike His body with sweat and His wife's body with labor pains and the whole world with physical upheavals like volcanoes and floods and pestilence and earthquake? Doesn't that strike you as odd that the punishment would come in physical form when the sin was in the moral realm? And that's where I'm getting this idea that if that's a response, then it must be that physical evils, calamities, horrors are meant to witness to that. And that makes sense to me because I know my fallen heart. And you know what? I am not moved very deeply emotionally by my selfishness. I am not outraged at my godlessness. I am not outraged. The world, none of you is outraged anywhere near what you should be at the way you have blackballed God in your attitude. The way you have not trusted Him, not delighted in Him, not obeyed Him, not treasured Him. The spot on your mother's carpet has caused more emotional upheaval than blaspheming the living God. God, seeing that we are that impervious, insensitive, unable to comprehend emotionally the outrage of the way we have treated God in our sins, says, I know how to outrage these people. Katrina, Pakistan, cancer. Then I get their attention. Then they get upset. Then they get riled up because they worship their comfort. They worship their life. They don't worship me. And suddenly we're shocked at the intensity of our emotions about things that are not God. And we hardly have any corresponding intensity of emotion about the outrage of unbelief in our own souls. So I think the second answer is that God subjected the world to futility physically with all of its outrages, all of its calamities, as a witness to the outrage of moral evil against God. Whenever you see a physical calamity, you should conclude sin is horrible. You should not conclude that person must have been a horrible sinner. to be swept away in Katrina when this person wasn't swept away. That's an absolutely unbiblical conclusion. You remember the story Jesus was told about Jesus? They came to him and told him two stories. Pilate had mingled the blood of people with their sacrifices in the temple. He had slaughtered